Our next speaker is from Omaha, Nebraska. I met her a few years ago. She was actually a finalist in our PFP Trainer of the Year contest. And I remember reading her application initially and seeing really what started as just a fitness studio in Omaha, Nebraska. It was almost like, I think, yesterday Robert said, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And she seemed to be attracting and being able to connect with clients seeking out help with Parkinson's. And it's really now led her to this, to being one of the most sought after fitness professionals on the Parkinson's, on topics of Parkinson's and exercise. So I know you'll get a lot out of it. How many of you might be asking this question, anybody work with clients with Parkinson's? Wow, okay, so here's your woman, Jacey Gengenbach.
Thank you, everyone. So you were right, that was gonna be my first question, is how many people are working with people with Parkinson's disease? For those of you who are not, are you intimidated by working with somebody with Parkinson's disease, or are you scared or anxious, or do you have any opinion one way or the other? People can chime out if they have anything to say on it. Because sometimes what I hear from people is that they're scared, they don't want to hurt them, they don't want them to fall, maybe they should sit in a chair, and of course we know that that is not the case. I'd like to tell you first about my very first client with Parkinson's disease. In 2005, I was working already as an independent contractor, and the owner of the facility was working with this gal, and she didn't want to work with her anymore. She said, she moves too slow. I don't want to do this anymore. You could tell she was frustrated with her. So I had agreed to work with her. Her name is Monty. And what I noticed with the programming of what she had been doing was that she was sitting and she was lifting 1-pound weights. Now keep in mind, Monty was 50 years old at the time, and she was 38 at the age of diagnosis. But she was walking, driving, but yet from an exercise professional standpoint, my boss had her sitting, And so I'd asked Monty, do you care if I change your program? I know that you can do so much more. And she said, yes, please do. So we started, first of all, get up, right? Let's move. Let's look at your symptoms of what you have for Parkinson's disease, and let's address that. Let's see if we can get some of that stuff put at bay. So she started telling her friends what she was doing as she was seeing great results, and then started telling more friends. They started telling their doctors what they were doing. We even had one doctor in Omaha who said, I want to take what you're doing and put it in a bottle and prescribe it to everyone, right? So fast forward a couple of years, and what I had been had in the back of my head was that we needed to have classes for people with Parkinson's disease in Omaha. At that time, there was nothing. Okay, so there was nothing for people with Parkinson's disease. In Omaha, well, specifically Nebraska, we have a high prevalence rate. According to some data, we have the highest prevalence rate of Parkinson's disease in the world. So I created a class just generically called Strength and Balance, because people can relate to that, right? Everybody needs strength, everybody needs balance. So we started the class, and it quickly grew. The other thing that I want to mention is that, that sense of camaraderie for those clients was huge, but also the caregivers or the spouses or the adult children that were bringing their parents or their loved one to exercise, they now had a sense of community. And those classes are still going on to this day as we speak at my studio. And so it just makes my heart happy when I see all of this. Monty, the very first client that I was telling you about, 13 years later, she is still with me exercising 2 to 3 times a week. So I just want to share with you the importance of this if you're already not aware. So, okay, oopsie, what's going on here? So let's just go ahead and talk a little bit about Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease affects 1 million people in the United States and 5 million people worldwide, making it the leading movement disorder disease. Mind-boggling, right? Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder resulting from a loss of dopamine cells in the substantia nigra of the brain. There are motor and non-motor symptoms. Some of the motor symptoms, some of those cardinal symptoms, what we think of, are bradykinesia, which is slowness in movement, right? Which is what the first trainer said, right? She moves too slow. So bradykinesia, there's rigidity or that stiffness in the muscles. There's a tremor at rest. The most common one is that pill rolling is what they call it, tremor at rest. And then postural instability. So those are some of those cardinal symptoms of what we think of with Parkinson's disease. Those non-motor signs and symptoms, depression. Probably every single one of my clients, you guys, that has came through my studio has at one point in time been depressed after their diagnosis with Parkinson's disease. So we need to pay attention to that. There's also sleep disorders with this. There's also some cognitive decline with it, digestive issues. So again, we as exercise professionals, we need to be aware of those things as well. Dopamine plays a role in starting movement, and it functions as a neurotransmitter. And for a reminder, neurotransmitter is a chemical released by nerve cells to send signals to other nerve cells. So best way to think about dopamine is that it moves us and it motivates us. Okay, so it moves us and it motivates us. Let's talk about some myths and misconceptions. Parkinson's disease is only a movement-related condition. We know that that is not the case, as I just shared some of the other things of what can go along with it. Parkinson's disease affects only old people. Again, I just mentioned my very first client was 38 when she was diagnosed. Michael J. Fox was in his 20s when he was diagnosed. Parkinson's disease always causes a tremor, and tremors are a part of Parkinson's disease. Again, just like I shared, there's so many symptoms that go along with this, and it's not just tremors. Parkinson's disease is curable. Parkinson's disease, unfortunately, is not curable, but a person can live with Parkinson's disease and manage the symptoms for a very long time. Parkinson's disease is predictable and follows a similar pattern in all clients. No two clients are the same, you guys know this, and it's the same thing with Parkinson's disease. Same thing, and the disease progression is different for every single one. All Parkinson's disease symptoms are visible, and as I just shared, a lot of those other non-motor symptoms that can go along with this. So, just because you see somebody and they aren't showing some of those cardinal symptoms doesn't mean that there's not something else going on. Symptoms are the same from day to day. Every time I have a client that walks through, I never know what they're gonna be feeling like, what they're gonna be moving like. It's different day to day, and the time of day can be very, very different. And the final one, there's nothing you can do after a PD diagnosis. Of course, we all know that that's false, and exercise is one of the most important things that they can do. So just a few of the benefits. Exercise improves dopamine efficiency by modifying areas of the brain where dopamine is received. Exercise protects nerve cells that are at risk for damage, degeneration, or cell death. And exercise improves neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to discover new nerve cell connections, which is really exciting. Exercise improves strength, gait, balance, tremor, flexibility, motor coordination, endurance. It improves their sleep. It improves their mood. It improves just their overall quality of life. And in some cases, it can delay those symptoms of Parkinson's. Key do's. These are going to be some pretty basic ones. Do let the client know that they have an active role in the management of their disease. I can't tell you how many clients come in and they say, Jacey, what do I do now? What do I do now? And they feel like they're being told by the doctors, well, you have to take this medicine or you have to do this. But then when I say, well, let's do something that you want to do, let's empower you to be doing things, that's very, very helpful for them. Exercise on a consistent basis Some movement is better than no movement. Every client hears that from me, every single one I work with, even my non-PD clients. We've got to move, but it's especially important in people with Parkinson's. Do have the client exercise in their on period of their medications. That's another thing. Be very, very aware. If you want to do a thorough health history on your clients and get that list of meds, because that can make a huge difference on all of our clients, but especially in PD. We need to capture them in their on period. Does everybody know what I'm talking about with on period? No? Okay. So typically, most commonly, clients are on a combination, it's called carbidopa-levodopa. So when that medication gets in their symptoms, in their system, they are in what we call an on period. So their movement is better. And so we want to be capturing them. We want them to be moving and exercising when they are in their on period. When that dose starts to wean off, it is like they are running out of gas. That is the best way I put it. Their movement just really, really declines, okay? So always be aware when you're doing your consults with them and scheduling your time with them, get them in their on period of their meds. So every single client of mine, I know what they're on, when they're taking it, when they're off, and all of that, okay? So that's our role too that we need to be a part of as an exercise professional. The cues are very, very important to clients with Parkinson's disease, because again, those signals, the messages to the brain are being impaired with that lack of dopamine. So we want to give audio cues, visual cues, mental imagery to prompt the client on how the action should be carried out. So in a sense, we're retraining the brain on how that client should be moving. Prescribe the exercise that focuses on improving the client's deficits. Again, you'll know that from doing your health history and your movement screen on them. Prescribe types of exercises that they can perform safely. And also prescribe the exercises that the clients enjoy. Okay, here we go on key don'ts. Don't have the client exercise in their off period. Again, I just talked about that. That off period is huge, because like I said, it is the best way I can put it, you guys, is that they're running out of gas, okay? I've even had clients who have actually had to sit, and get that next dose in before then they leave, because they had been off on their dosing before they came in. Don't hover or crowd the client. So that stresses them out. Give them their space. So again, their slowness in movement, they maybe are a little unstable with where they're at, but we don't want to crowd them. We don't want to hover them. Don't give long, complex cues. It gets confusing. Keep it simple. Keep it stuff that they can relate to. Don't pull on the client or their assistive device if they are having a freezing episode. Does everybody know what freezing is in Parkinson's? Okay, so freezing, how can I explain it? I have clients who they are standing and wanting to walk, and they can't initiate that first step. And they say, Jacey, it feels like my feet are in cement. It feels like my feet are in cement. I cannot move. And so when they have those episodes, we call that freezing, where they literally feel, and they cannot move forward. So we have to do some freezing interventions with them to get them moving. So some people with Parkinson's, of my clients, they have actually had people in the public who thought that they were helping by pulling on their walker, or maybe kind of giving them a shove, and that's not what we want to do with them. Don't hurry the client. And the other thing is, don't think that they are not understanding you just because they are not replying to you immediately. There can be a slight delay on processing with clients with Parkinson's disease. And so they're hearing you, they know what they want to say to you, but just be patient with them and hear them out, because it will come out. All right, training recommendations. So this is the stuff that we're going to talk about and actually have you guys do. Lisa, will you come on up? So the very first one is interventions for gait deviation. So again, these are just some suggestions of what you guys can do. Thanks, Lisa, for coming on up. What we commonly see in people with Parkinson's disease on their gait is that they have either a diminished arm swing or no arm swing at all. So go ahead and stand up, you guys, and I'll just have you do this arm swing part of the gait, okay? So what we first have clients do, standing, is just swing your arms. Think from the shoulder capsule here, okay? So you're just swinging the arms. What commonly happens with this, you guys, is that people will start swinging from the elbow and they'll start doing this, and that's not what we want. We want swinging and be loosey-goosey from the shoulder, right? So one of the things that I do with clients to increase that is I give them magazines to hold, one in each hand. You guys can stop swinging, or if it feels good, keep on swinging and get loosened up, right? Okay? So you're just going to hold one hand on each. And so just swinging with those magazines in the hands can also help increase that range of motion on the arm swing. So now, go ahead and stop. You guys can sit for a second. We're going to get back up again. Now what I'm going to have Lisa do is come on over here. So in Parkinson's disease, we have some clients are shuffling or they take short steps. We want to be taking long steps. Everything needs to be big and almost over-exaggerated, right? So one of the things that we do then is we very first start out with where are they at for their starting position. So we always want to, okay, hold on a second. So we also might have clients when they start out, their feet might be narrow or they might be kind of hunched over. So we want to get them in a good start position. So I always have them get a good base of support with feet shoulder width or slightly wider. I give them cues. Okay, now stand and have your shoulders back. Have your chest open. Pull that belly button into your spine. We go by these one by one. Think of having a quarter on top of your head. And also, relax your jaw. Because some people clench and they don't even realize it, right? So we give all of those cues, and then we say, okay, Lisa, on your very first step, this sets the tone for all of your movement. That first initiation of movement is the most important, because we don't want them to start out small, because then what? It's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So we have them start out with as big of a step possible as what they can do with the magazines. So you're just going to do your walk-in as you can go across the stage. Now, what we would see in a person with Parkinson's disease is that their steps would be significantly longer, their strides would be longer, their arm swing would be greater, and it wouldn't take any significant amount of time to be working on this. So we do the greater the distance we can cover, the better. We're limited to our stage here. You can go ahead and come on back. But again, just those simple cues and use of the magazines and with the arm swings, for some people that is a huge, huge difference maker. Okay, now what I'm gonna have you do, another one that we can do for gait, you guys, is, again, when we have a client with those small steps, is I'll have a client stand here, and Lisa, I'm just gonna have you count the number of steps it takes, say from this line, and let's just go ahead and go down to this one. So, how many was that? Okay, so she did that in 8 steps. Now, in a client with Parkinson's disease, it's going to be a whole lot more. Now, what we want to do is we want them to cover that same amount of distance, but in a lesser amount of steps, okay? So working on those things, that good base of support to get started, the long strides, and the big arm swing, right? So go ahead and see what you got. What'd you say? 5.5. Oh, 5.5. And what's interesting about this one, as you do this with clients, is that it almost becomes like a competition, right, within themselves. That, oh, I did that in 12 steps, now I'm going to do it in 10, or now I'm going to do it in 8. I've even had one client who had improved so much in his exercise programming and also with this drill that he was practically, you guys, leaping across the room and just having a blast with it, So that's huge. Okay. Let's go ahead and just discuss, again, that freezing. When we talked about that freezing, remember they said, oh my gosh, Jacey, my feet are stuck in cement. One of the things that I'll do, if you want to face me, be side to side, is that I'll say, okay, Lisa, I'm going to put my arm around you, and I'm going to put my hip right next to yours. And we're going to rock side to side, and whenever it could be 1, it could be 10. 10 rocks, and you're just going to shift the weight, and when you're ready to take a step, then you're going to take a step. And for some clients, that's like turning on a light switch, just to have that movement right there. Now, I don't call the shots on how many times are we rocking, you know. They are just doing whatever it takes. Like I said, it could be 3, it could be 10, and then they're gonna go ahead and take that step. Another thing I use is a laser. So sometimes pointing a laser on the ground can be a difference maker for people to get moving, which I didn't bring. Some clients where they clap their hands. I have one guy where and he's off. Some, it's snapping fingers. It's, again, we gotta find the right cues for the right client. And it's different for everybody. So you gotta be creative with this stuff. Think outside of the box. Okay, on the posture, let's go ahead and talk about the approaching doorways and thresholds. What we see in clients with Parkinson's disease is that when they approach a doorway, everything gets small and narrow. So they're already taking small steps if they haven't been focusing in on their gait, right? Now when they go through the doorway, it's gonna become smaller and smaller and smaller, and they're gonna be at risk for falling. So what we want to do with them is that we have them look beyond the doorway and then continue on through. Or we'll have you count steps to walk through it. So again, be thinking strategy to help them move and to function. So pretty basic things there. Okay, on postural instability, that can show up in a few different ways. I'm about getting there. It could be getting up from a chair. It could be just standing straight. It could be changing directions, okay? So that's a few of the ways how postural instability shows up. So for changing directions, especially moving backward, so I'll have you face this way, is one of the exercises I have clients do is I have them step back and turn and shift their body weight onto their back leg and come back to their start position and then roll and go to the other side. Now, safety is first, so I might have some clients that need to be inside of gate bars, or they might be one hand on the side of the outside of the gate bar and doing it one side at a time. Or I might have somebody who's very mobile and moving pretty well that they don't need anything, or even that we can progress and add resistance to it. So there's different progressions. Okay, so now it's time for you guys to get back up. We're gonna do some of the cognitive and motor tasks and exercises, and Lisa, you're gonna help. Okay, so one of the first exercises that we're gonna do, and you might wanna stagger yourself because you're gonna be standing and have a good base of support and have your arms out wide. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna come across the body and clap your hand. Come all the way back here to your start position. You guys are gonna say open. Then come over here and clap. And go out here and say open. Again, this is all part of the cues. Okay, now what we're gonna do when you clap is you're gonna count by 4, and we're going up to 80. So you're gonna be like this. It's gonna be 4, open, 8, open, 12, open, 16, open, 20, open, 24, open, 28, open, 32, open, 36, open, 40, open, 44, open, 48, open, 52, open, 6, open, 60, open, 64, open, 68, open, 72, open, 76, open, 80, open. Okay, so again, we did high repetitions on that. We want that to be over and over and over again. We want them to be loosening up every time that they do this, right? And adding that cognitive piece to it. Okay, now the next one we're gonna do is we're just gonna do a step and a punch, doing opposite arm, opposite leg, okay? So you're just gonna step and punch, bring it back, and then step and punch here, okay? Now, on this one, we're starting at 80, and we're gonna count backwards by 4, okay? Okay, you guys ready? Okay, so here we go. 76, 72, 68, good job, 64, 60, 56, 52, 48, 44, 40, 36, 32, 28, 24, 20, 16, 12, 8, 4, 0. Good job. Okay, thanks, Lisa. Thank you. Okay, I'm getting close out of time, but I really want to show you guys this video of my client, Mark.
I'm 78 years old. I've had Parkinson's for approximately 12 years. Like everyone else, you're never knowing for sure until you get it truly diagnosed. When I had it diagnosed 12 and a half years ago, I was told that exercise was a key component, which of getting better, or at least staving it off as long as possible. I never wanted to be defined as having Parkinson's. I didn't want people to know me as Mark Jefferson with Parkinson's. I wanted it to remain Mark Jefferson. So I got the proper, I guess you'd say, cocktail of medicines, which gives me the energy to exercise. And I exercise virtually every day. I don't know what I would do without it. It's been very, very important in helping me to maintain an active lifestyle, work in the lawn, do all the things that I used to do, I guess except high jump. In any case, working with Jacey has been very important. It's been the better part of 10 to 11 years. And I've been coming with her to 2-3 times a week for all that time. And she constantly comes up with something new. She's professional in what she does. She cares about her people. And she gets new things as soon as they're coming out of the basket. I've appreciated very much working with her and working with the teams that she's put together. And that's about all I have to say, other than thank God I keep exercising.
So just on my last note, I would encourage you guys to be open to working with people with Parkinson's disease and other neurological disorders, and to be that difference maker in their life. So open your eyes, open your heart, open your mind, because you can make a huge difference. Does anybody have any questions for me? You want to go to the mic, though?
That was very inspiring, Jacey. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
I've been working with Parkinson's in an exercise group for about 2-3 years, but now I'm starting to do actually Nordic walking with them. Mm-hmm. And Nordic walking is growing with the Parkinson's group in Europe. Mm-hmm. So is it something that you've tried here in America?
I haven't done the Nordic walking, but I know that they're doing it. And over the last several years, there has definitely been more Parkinson's programs kind of popping up for exercise. But myself, I have not done that with my clients, but I am familiar with it.
I do recommend it.
Yes.
And it gets them outside.
Yes.
With confidence. But my second question is, how big are your groups?
Ideally, I like them 4 to 6 because of the things that we have people do. I have a 30-foot agility ladder that we use. We use different gait assessments, freezing drills. We're doing contralateral movement. So I like them small, but I've had as many as 11 in my group at all different levels. And, it's a task to do, but 4 to 6 is my favorite. Anybody else?
Jacey, thanks for that great presentation. I do have a comment and a question. So when we have Parkinson's patients coming into our community programs from physical therapy referrals, one of the things that our students and exercise leaders get kind of freaked out about is that oftentimes there's very limited facial affect.
Right.
So
right.
Not only are there some of the traditional symptoms that we look for, but they don't look like they're having fun. Right? They look like they're miserable, and my students, and they freak out. They're like, oh my God, this person's unhappy, they hate me, etc.
Right.
But ultimately, when you actually engage them in conversation, you find that they're having a great time. They just simply cannot produce what we would consider to be kind of the typical facial affect.
Right,
So
you
is that
are-
something you see a
Oh
lot?
yeah, he's exactly right. That masked appearance, you know. So again, you may think that they're not listening to you, or that they're not responding to you, or that they're not happy, but that's not the case. They just can't present it like that.
Right.
You know, one of my clients, it was Monty, my very first client. She says, I sometimes feel like I'm in a box and I can't express myself.
Right.
So that's huge.
Right, right. And then following up a bit on what Anita said, here in the States, a lot of ballistic big power movements
Right.
are very common.
Right.
So Becky Farley in Arizona,
Yeah, with
she's
the
done
PWR program.
and then the Rock Steady boxing. Could you just
Right.
talk to the place where kind of power movement and big, large ballistic movements might fit into treating Parkinson's
Right,
patients?
yeah, and we do incorporate that again on my short presentation here. It's hard to include everything, but we do big movements, over-exaggerated movements, power movements. We are doing things with some strength training too. All of those are very important components of the program. I just was showing you some things, so some tips of what you can work through, things that you don't need a lot of anything to do with the clients, but those are definitely key components, and those are components in our program as well. Yep.
Great talk, Jacey.
Oh, thanks.
How about stretching? You mentioned about rigid joints and muscles. Do you ever use manipulative work with
Yeah,
them?
we do stretching too. We incorporate that in our classes, or in our group training. And if we need to have some additional time with clients, we'll take that. And also, we still do some individual sessions with our clients with PD, and so that's also included. Very important. Yeah, and then I got
Wonderful presentation, good of examples of how to get through some of the challenges. To the issue of facial expression, you probably do that too, like with a loud program, that when you work with the clients, you let them speak, and speak very loud. It may be strange in your gym, but that helps them to actually move their facial expression and work the vocal cords, because the vocal cords also deteriorate with Parkinson's. So just bring the speaking, the loud speaking, the laughing into the exercises. I'm assuming you're already doing that.
Right, and that's exactly why I had you guys say open and numbers, and you're counting. Besides the cognitive work, I have clients, they're practically screaming that, when we're doing. I say, let's get us a noise complaint here, okay? But yes, that's a big part of it. And I got to wrap up here. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your experience. So you mentioned about doing exercise during the on period. So are they going to do anything on their off period? Because assuming I'm a patient, so I'm already feeling stronger when I have the medication, then I do exercise, I feel like I'm good. But when I'm off period, I'm down, I'm losing power, I'm not able to do exercise. So it's like my mood is up and down, so it's a big difference. So do you have any experience of doing them, how to deal with I'm powerful, then I'm nothing?
Yeah,
That
well,
kind of
usually
feeling.
over the course of time with the exercise, that off period, and when there's, when those symptoms start to kind of creep back, when they're in that off period, we see that becomes for a shorter amount of time before they get back to where they need to be. All right, thanks, you guys.